Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello to all of our many listeners, and welcome once again to our show. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. 9 volumes available at Amazon in paperback and ebook, and in audio format, volumes 1 through 8 at Audible, Amazon, and iTunes as well. Please go out and buy some copies, and you'll make me very happy. And now, may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, one of our listeners, I reach out to a lot of people, and believe it or not, folks, very few people return my call even when I reach out to them. So that's kind of weird. But I spoke to a lovely lady named Margaret the other night, 66 years old, formerly of Western Pennsylvania, now living in Texas. And yet again, she did not see a Bigfoot. However, she was well familiar with what a bear was and what a bear looks like, etc., etc. One day in Western Pennsylvania, around 1980, her husband had taken their ladder to work. And being industrious, she wanted to do some painting of the eaves on her house. So she rolled out a empty 50-gallon drum and climbed up on it and was using that as her platform. So while she was up there, she heard and felt a large, voluminous growl. And yet again, Kev, she said like this thing went through her. She could feel it. And immediately, she told me she was shorter than 5 feet, like 4'10" or something, a little lady. Here she is, precariously standing on this drum, now with whatever this was, feeling like it was 10, 15, 20 feet behind us. What am I going to do? I'm going to die here. But she turned around, having heard this, and there was a cluster of pretty large trees. When I say large, diameter-wise, 6, 8 inches, with some tall grass growing up through and around them, up against the woods kind of, and these trees were shaking. And I said to Margaret, it'd be very difficult for even the strongest of men to shake one tree that was 8 inches in diameter. And she was in agreement. Now, she didn't see anything. Eventually, she jumped down off of the drum and ran into the house. Blah, blah, blah. The rest of the story is kind of insignificant. But, what is that? Think about it, Kev, right? What can make such a noise that it goes through you? And she said it was not a bear. And bears, and she knew enough, like bears don't generally shake big trees. They may climb them, they may scratch them with their claws, they may rub their backs against them.
Yep.
But to shake numerous, like something was in between them, rattling them with its hands.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense, man. So there you have it. Margaret, formerly of Western Pennsylvania, and a little tale of the old freaky deaky. I tell you, that would have scared the bejeebers out of me, man.
Yeah, especially while you're standing up on top of something doing a chore, right?
Yeah, holding a paintbrush.
Yeah, that's a little spooky, as they say.
I guess it's not that easy to always carry more gun than you think you're going to need.
Not when you're carrying a paintbrush that's full of paint.
Yeah, you have your old Smith & Wesson at your side. And
You got to do
white...
your chores. You're not always armed while you're doing your chores.
Well, you don't go armed to the supermarket?
Yeah, sometimes I do. Not usually armed when I'm vacuuming, though.
Yeah, no, I understand. So, what do we have this evening, bro?
Yeah, so in Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities, we're going into the modern day news. So very recently, just a few days ago, we had an article, and I don't know if you saw this or not, Bill, from over in Scotland, from the Daily Mail in Scotland, where a couple that was on holiday, so on a little vacation, they shot some video of what they think is the Loch Ness Monster.
Ooh.
Did you happen to see this a few days back?
I have not, but are you going to post it?
Yeah, I will definitely post it on our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, under episode 149.
Yeah, so another filming of Nessie.
Yeah, and one of the experts, on Nessie says it's the best footage in the last 20 years.
Wow, that's saying something.
I watched the footage, and, it's taken from a long way away, which is reasonable because the couple, in their 50s, they were on vacation, on holiday there, and the woman got up early in the morning, about 6 a.m., to take some pictures of the Loch Ness because there was no wind, so it was, and you'll see in the video, it's a mirror, a sheet of mirror glass is the surface of the water, so spectacular. But they're up on the hillside, a couple of 100 yards away from the water, I would guess, maybe 100 yards away from the water, and you do see this wake going along. Wow. All right, the film's about 2 minutes long. And it's going along, and then it starts turning towards shore. There's absolutely no boats out on the water and absolutely no wake at all. And the couple and the experts that looked at it, I can't really tell, looking at it even on my big screen on the computer, they say that they see humps breaking the surface of the water and something powerful and swimming and turning underneath the water.
Now, did you see any of that, or these people?
I see the strong wake,
okay.
And they say it was about 150 yards off the shore. And this gentleman, Gary Campbell, who spent the last 26 years logging every credible sighting of Nessie, said it's the best footage he's seen in decades.
Well, you got to say to yourself, Kev, first of all, perfect conditions.
Oh, really? Like a sheet of glass. And 6 a.m.,
wow.
No wind, no boats out, no fishermen around.
Right. And listen, everybody knows there's no tidal current in a lake. Outside of blowing gales and wave movement, that's the only thing that could move a log or anything large through the water. But again, when was the last... Kev, look, I'm a fisherman, right?
Right.
I've run up on logs floating in the water and just back down the throttle before you hit them. Ain't nothing moving around at any kind of speed floating in the water. It's simply there lumbering along in the current wherever it came from and wherever it's going to end up. There's nothing moving at speed like a mini sub or a jet ski at slow idle or something. It just doesn't happen.
No, and it's interesting. This couple, they say that, and by the way, they want to remain anonymous, but they're happy to have their footage that they took be analyzed. They also took some still shots too that were not posted, but the experts say the still shots are even more informing than the video. But the video, I would say, definitely is something living. It's a creature. I just can't tell from the distance if it's a big fish swimming along the surface or a big bird swimming along the surface or something like that. You just can't tell. But there is definitely a big wake cruising along and then making a turn in the video.
Any kind of estimates as to the length of what is seen?
From my vantage point, I can't tell. I'm looking here. They say estimated between 20 and 30 feet long.
Yeah. And that's what you can see.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's not a bird.
No, I know. I'm just saying. It's some kind of creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm well familiar with all kinds of stuff down at
definitely
water.
not a log floating. That's what I was reacting to. Probably not a bear.
Yeah, a bear in a scuba suit.
Yogi Bear looking for some picnic baskets.
Yeah. Love that stuff. Hey, boo-boo, got any picnic baskets? Gee, Yogi.
Hey, that's a pretty good boo. That's a pretty good boo-boo.
That's right, Kev.
Watch out for Ranger Smith.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I give credit. I've seen a few, more than a few Nessie shots through the years, and I'll be honest with you, I found a number of them to be quite compelling.
Well, and the cool thing is, although they say the still photos were better than the video's compelling to me because you can tell, like I said, it's something moving, and it can't be a log or something because it's just a sheet of glass, the water. So it is definitely some type of creature likely moving under the water and just breaking the surface of the water.
Yeah,
so,
and
and this is another one of these lakes, right? The Loch Ness, that's super deep and pretty darn large and pretty much unexplored. So just like Lake Champlain, where Champy is, and a couple of those lakes that I talked about out in the Pacific Northwest, where there's other creatures living in them, rumored to be living in them, and some pretty cool video and photographs as well. Loch Ness is the original, right? Documented cryptid inhabited lake, right?
Yeah. What do you think, our biggest eel is? Like a moray? Look, I've watched eels swim through the water. They don't generally come to the surface. And the way they move does not lend itself to forming bumps like a roller coaster ride on the surface.
Well, I can tell you, too, we went out to Jordan Lake here in North Carolina, out near Pittsburgh, North Carolina. I was going to be racing my sailboat last Saturday and Sunday. And we went out on Friday night just to drop the boat off at the lake. And it was a sheet of glass, like 6 o'clock at night. No boats out, not a breath of wind. And we brought some dinner with us to eat there just looking at the lake after we dropped the boat off. And there it was, right out about 100 yards offshore, we saw a snake swimming along the surface of the water, probably a copperhead. But you're not going to mistake this snake for some other big creature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't close enough. It was 100 yards away. I couldn't identify what kind of snake it was, but it was clear it was a snake.
Right.
And
even if it was 6 or 8 feet long, a big snake.
It was still a big snake. You weren't thinking oh, it's a sea monster. No, it was a snake.
Yeah, especially to the trained eye, which you have.
Yeah.
So you.
But I mean, even
immediately
if
say,
somebody never saw a snake swimming in the lake, they'd say, "Oh, look, it's a snake." Like,
yeah, it's so obvious.
So you like the scale of it, the wake of it. Yeah, it made a little tiny wake, but you wouldn't have been able to see it like this one. Again, when you folks and you, Bill, look at this video, you'll see it's pretty significant wake. Like the bad news is the video's from far away. The good news is you can see the wake so clearly, you know it's significant. It's not an eel.
Yeah, well, there'll be people who said, "Why didn't you get a little closer?"
Well, there'll be people. I mean, she wasn't shaking, though, when she took the video. That's the good news. Yeah. But there'll be people saying maybe it was a bear,
yeah. Oh, that's really
maybe it was
crazy.
a Labrador Retriever. I didn't even think of that. Fetching something.
A very large Labrador Retriever.
But, I looked into it a little bit, Bill, because we've never done a podcast on Nessie when I looked back. Yeah. And I'm not going to do a full one here now, but we will hit on it. But it's interesting that the earliest report of the monster Nessie in this vicinity of Loch Ness appears in a publication called The Life of Saint Columba, who was an Irish monk by the name of Saint Columba, and he was staying in the area there. And he went out for a little hike, and he encountered some local residents burying a man. And they explained that the man was killed while he was swimming in the River Ness, which attaches there to the lake, when he was attacked by a water beast that mauled him and dragged him underwater despite their attempts to rescue him by boat.
Wow.
And this goes back to 565.
Yeah, not exactly last week.
No.
And I heard something once a long time ago of some credible witness that encountered the beast walking across like a dirt road.
Exactly. So I came across that too. So let me find that one here for you because I hadn't heard of that one. Well, there's a couple of them. This Aldi Mackey in 1933 discussed a sighting of an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the water in the loch while she and her husband were driving on the A82. I guess it's a motorway in April of 1933.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, let's do that one day. Let's bring out all the evidence and see what can be had as far as, articles, et cetera, and see what we can put together. It definitely sparks my interest.
Yeah. So let me, I promised to tell you that one you were talking about why did Nessie cross the road, right? So that sighting came from a gentleman named George Spicer in 1933. And this really sparked his sighting, and the reporting of his sighting sparked a lot of the modern day interest in the Loch Ness Monster. And this gentleman reported on July 22nd, 1933, that he and his wife saw what's in quotations as a most extraordinary form of animal that crossed the road in front of their car. They described the creature as having a large body, about 4 feet high and about 25 feet long, and a long, wavy, narrow neck, slightly thicker than an elephant's trunk. And that was as long as 10 or 12 feet.
Wow, that's pretty good description.
I know. I never heard that one before either.
And listen, not exaggerated in dimensions. They're not saying a brontosaurus. A 4-foot tall, somewhat large body, a neck slightly thicker than an elephant's trunk.
Yeah, and the whole thing about 25 feet long.
Yeah, I mean, that fits the bill.
Yeah, I mean, that could be some kind of weird creature that we just don't know about living anymore. Plesiosaur or whatever, All
right, that's right. And if there was more than one of them, which to me there's got to be.
There always has to be more than one, right? These things don't live forever.
Right. So that could have even been a younger one.
Sure.
Who knows? Maybe a larger one is 40 feet long.
Who knows?
You know, and
But
if
that
you
would
look
make
at
a
like,
wake. That would make a wake when it's cruising along.
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And we don't know how it swims. If it kind of porpoised a little bit, just kind of like undulating like some of the birds do in flight, where they flap and they go up and they drop and they go up and drop.
Yep.
A lot of birds have that pattern of flight, like when you look at some of these ornithological books and whatnot. And I watch the birds all the time, and I can see the ones that do that. Others fly relatively straight, kind of flapping constantly. So yeah, I could easily see that happening. This undulating movement on the surface, kind of going in and out as it was swimming.
Yep.
I find all of this stuff fascinating, and I don't find it beyond the realm of sensible possibility at all.
Right.
So I haven't seen one, and I think it's probably true. And I haven't seen a Nessie. I'm never at Loch Ness. And I still have within me the ability to say, I believe that's true.
Sure.
You know,
you've heard me say a lot of times, for me to believe that there's a creature under the water that we think doesn't exist, it's pretty easy for me to believe that.
Yeah.
It's just an unexplored area,
Yeah. No, it's really remarkable to me, and I look forward to your exegesis on Nessie down the road a piece.
Down the river a piece, perhaps.
Down the loch a piece. Excellent.
All right, Bill, so where are we going tonight for the account?
Well, according to Brian Lynch, his Bigfoot sighting on the Dream Lake Trail wasn't a dream at all. Now listen closely as I tell you about what Brian saw. It was in July of 2015, not all that long ago, folks, when a couple of my besties and I were on a hike in Rocky Mountain National Park on our way to Dream Lake. About 4 hours into the trek, we were following a meandering trail at elevation, working our way around an enormous boulder. From our vantage point, Long's Peak was visible way in the distance. To our left and falling away from the trail was a slope covered in some grass, brush, and small pointed pines of many shapes and sizes. As we had just made it around this large boulder, there were several other smaller and flatter rocks that seemed to be inviting us to take a break, and so we did. The trail here almost gave the appearance of tan beach sand in contrast to the surrounding color palette. Just ahead of us, at a distance of about 200 feet, this tan trail wound around a bend and vanished from our view. The three of us had chosen different spots to cop a squat, so to speak, on two different rocks. My back was to the very view that I just described to you because of where and how I chose to sit, as was my friend Kevin's. Bobby, however, chose to sit on a smaller boulder that was about 10 feet down the slope and was facing towards the direction of our heading. I was munching on a couple of packages of cookies and drinking a bottle of Gatorade when Bobby said, "Hey guys, there's someone coming." It was about 2 seconds after what he had just said registered in my brain that he then said, "What the heck is that?" Startled, Kevin and I quickly spun around. The three of us were now sitting with our collective eyes fixed on a large brown figure that had stopped dead in the middle of the trail ahead of us. Having just come around this bend I spoke of earlier. I guess momentarily it hadn't registered in Bobby's mind that he was looking at a Bigfoot, because we now were all too well aware of what it was we were seeing. The creature appeared to be equally as shocked as we were from the way it had suddenly stopped and stood. It was staring right at us and began to rock from side to side. At this point, we had all gotten to our feet and were looking right at it as well, wondering what to do. I think the distance was more than likely about 100 or 125 feet or so, if my memory serves me correctly, as we stood and faced each other off. Now, what I'm about to say may seem really off the wall, but of course, Bill, I'm going to say it anyway, because nobody who reads your books will ever meet me to beat me up about it or verbally browbeat me. In that moment, a deep sense of despair and even loneliness started to overwhelm me as I stood there. It hit me like some type of spiritual wave, and this feeling wasn't for us, but rather for this creature. I felt as though it was emotionally distraught and in some way, shape, or form wanted to communicate that to us, but couldn't. There was absolutely nothing aggressive whatsoever about its posture or its actions. To me, it was exuding sadness. What I did next, only a pet lover will understand. But I gently raised my hand and said, "Hello there. We are your friends." I tell you the truth and no lie. In the moment, I didn't have an ounce of fear in me about this creature. I only felt sorrow, as though it badly needed our help. No sooner had I said this than it raised its arms gently and kind of nodded its head, retreating back from where it had come. As soon as it moved out of sight, Kevin, not knowing how or what I was feeling, said, "That was awful." I asked him, "What do you mean?" He said, "I felt like I was at a funeral or something. It was like a heaviness was all over me while that Bigfoot was standing there." I told him, "I can't believe that you just said that, because all I could feel was sadness about this thing, and you just confirmed it with your own lips." He said to me, "Yeah, man, it was like I just wanted to talk to somebody, or like it just wanted to talk to somebody and was even more upset that it couldn't." We all slowly walked up to where it had just been and could actually still see it walking back down the trail. As we stood watching, it turned its body one time to look back at us and disappeared. When I say to you disappeared, I'm not talking about around a blind corner. I'm talking about it had vanished, like now you see me and now you don't. The three of us stood there looking at each other and the trail as if to say, did we just see that? And yes, we just had. I looked down at my feet, and I could clearly see the prints of what would have been large human-like feet in this somewhat sandy surface of the trail. This being that actually had substance to it, having left tracks, had vanished before our eyes. I have no explanation for what I have just conveyed to you, nor will I attempt to rationalize the event in any way, shape, or form. You can simply accept it or reject it entirely, and I will understand. As the creature stood in the trail at a fairly close distance to us, it seemed to be almost 7 feet tall, and at its shoulders twice as broad as the trail, being some 4 feet or so. It had simply come to a halt upon seeing us and was gently rocking back and forth from the waist up. The hair was somewhat long and brown, and I could see the skin of its chest through the fur. The skin on its face looked like a weather-beaten, dark grayish color. The hands the same. How is it that something that has form and shape and function can just disappear is beyond me. I really don't expect anyone to frankly believe me, even you, Bill. Yet I have told the story again and again, and now I have told it to you. What do you make of that, Kev?
That's pretty wild. I mean, you got some very detailed and interesting descriptions of the creature, right? All facets of the creature. You have the creature leaving, what sound like beautiful footprints on this sandy area, and yet the thing disappears. So it's close enough that you can get all of these detailed descriptions, and it is leaving these, worldly footprints, and then the thing just disappears. That is weird.
And, even if it was just a dusting on the trail, if you walk down there with your shoes or boots or barefoot, something's going to be there for a little while in that dust.
Yeah.
But it makes me think about other shows we've seen where these things just kind of, now you see it, now you don't.
Yeah, the whole cloaking phenomena.
Very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
And how something does that, I mean, I have said when I've seen some of the heat signature footage on some of these shows, how does something put off heat and then doesn't?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. It's got to go somewhere or disappear or not be
it would have to
anymore.
drop below ground or something like that, or have some type of cloaking mechanism. And, Bill and our listeners, I'm a bit of a skeptic of the cloaking thing just because my scientific mind tries to follow the theorem of Occam's razor, where Occam said the most obvious solution, or the most obvious, reasoning for what you're seeing is probably the most likely. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't lit well and disappeared behind a tree, or you never saw it originally, or something like that. Those are the obvious explanations. Like some type of scientific cloaking or magic Harry Potter disappearing cape. Not likely, but yet you hear these very vivid descriptions like this one, where it really makes somebody like me scratch their head and be like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, and I have no idea where this feeling of sadness and remorse comes into play.
That's a whole different thing. I have no idea.
That's some really strange commentary,
Yeah, but you do have many accounts, Bill, as you know better than I, where people talk about these creatures somehow communicating with them without speaking words or making noises. right?
Yeah, kind of telepathically. Something to that. Yeah.
Sending a sense of feeling to them.
Right.
So, but that's right there. That's right there with the cloaking, though. To me, it's like, hey, could be, but wow,
And many others have also commented about being in the presence or in the area of these creatures and feeling very sick, becoming like incapacitated, like they're being overwhelmed.
And not just because of the stench that some of them describe.
Yeah.
Not just like the stink.
Like walking in an old service station bathroom that hasn't been cleaned in 30 years.
Hey, I was in one of those the other day.
Oh, that is the worst.
I did look around for a Bigfoot, but didn't see one.
Yeah. If you've ever walked into them and then you ask some of the guys working in there, hey, can I use your bathroom for a minute? They're like, sure, it's right over there. And you go in, you're like, this is where these guys go? Oh, man. Then you see the guy eating a sandwich, with his fingers.
Hey, you want a bite?
No, thanks. I just had a really good breakfast. It'll last me all day.
And into the next day if you see me tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're still here. When I come back to pick up my car tomorrow, I don't think I'll be hungry then either. So
exactly.
Thanks.
Don't worry. Just finish it up.
Unbelievable. Well, I tell you, man, that is freaky deaky, the Dream Lake Trail.
Yeah, what do you think, Bill, of the disappearing Bigfoot? You think they have some type of cloaking mechanism or something?
Kev, I've said it before, and for people who are new to the show, and it really doesn't matter because I repeat myself ad nauseum. I think some of these encounters are from the demonic realm.
Okay.
And so when you see something vanish, it doesn't belong to us. It's non-earthly. So yes, it can come in a physical body, but when it goes back to where it goes, it assumes a former status in that dimension or that realm. And that's all I can say. It's like it's no different than an angelic visitation. We don't see angels every day of the week. You probably will never see an angel in your lifetime. But there are many instances where angels take on physical form, including clothing, faces, footwear, the whole Megillah. They come, they deliver a message, and poof, the whole kit and the caboodle is gone. They don't leave the clothes on the chair of your car, the seat of your car. The guy that was standing in front of you in the woods, his cloak and hat doesn't drop to the ground and he's gone. Everything is gone.
Right. Now, so Bill, too, there's another theory, too, and I know we've covered it in some of the accounts, that it could be some type of alien being that manifests itself like one of these creatures, right?
Yeah, but then again, you have to say to yourself, what do you believe aliens are?
Oh, well, yeah, fair.
Yeah. So, I kind of lump all of those things into the same thing. I think all of that stuff is demonic. And I stand my ground. I understand people have other opinions. But I think these things are a distraction. They're trying to get people to believe something that really is not as though it is.
Yeah, but, are you saying you don't believe that there could be some type of alien spacecraft from other worlds?
I think they're from other dimensions, not necessarily from other worlds.
Okay.
I use the account, let's just say the old story of Joshua, the prophet Joshua. Joshua is standing in front of the host of Israel, preparing for battle. And suddenly, from his side comes a man walking, dressed in full battle array, carrying a sword. Now, I visualize Joshua as some guy who's really not going to stand around too long before you're going to be on the receiving end of his blade if you don't identify yourself. But he hangs tough, and he says, "Who are you? Identify yourself. Are you for us or against us?" That's what he said. And this guy, whoever he was, and there's conjecture about that, he says, "I am the captain of the Lord of Hosts." So, I guess, Joshua and his boys, his captains, whoever he had with him, must have been convinced in that moment, like, "All right, brother. Thanks for coming to help us out. Now, let's have at it." Now, where did this guy come from? He's dressed, he's got armor, he's got a weapon. He looks in their time frame to be somebody who they recognized as a man of war. He didn't look like an alien. He didn't look like a robot. And yet, here he comes.
Yep.
Here he comes. Where did that guy come from? And where does he go when he's done? This is some bizarre things, man. And it's very difficult to ask the question, what do you think? Because you're going to get people from all points of the compass that have an opinion about that.
I certainly believe that some of the stuff is demonic, but I think there is a possibility that there's intelligent life out there in other solar systems universes.
Yeah, and there you have it.
Yeah.
That is the nature of the beast when we're talking about all of these odd, strange things.
Yeah.
I have definite spiritual opinions in my own life. So I voice them. I'm not ashamed of any of them.
Oh, no, nothing wrong with that.
But I talk to other people, coworkers, people that I speak to on a regular basis, callers from the show, and they have very different opinions.
Yep.
And that's really kind of what makes this whole thing spin, right?
Cool. Very cool account, though. I love that, from Rocky Mountain National Park out there in Colorado. Been there, hiked around there. It is spectacular. Maybe I've even been on the Dreamy Trail.
And I'll tell you, Kev, I'm really digging on that Loch Ness thing. I look forward to kicking that around a little bit, because that, you want to talk about something with some history behind it. That's right up there,
No, and folks, check out the video. It'll be in the episode section of our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, under episode 149. So... Mm-hmm. All right, Bill, we got some great listener mail this week we're going to hit on. And the first one is from one of your favorite states here in the United States.
Would that be Oregon?
Yes, from Callan, from Oregon, or Oregon to me. And Callan writes, "Dear WJ and KJ, I really admire your brotherly connection. So refreshing that you both have such skills." I wonder what skills they're talking about. "And bring so much to the podcast you do together. I discovered your show when I was in bed at home for a week recovering from the dreaded COVID. That was just this last January 2022. Now I'm going back through the shows and I am hooked. I listen when I go to bed and during my workouts and basically any other time that I can. Let's all thank the good Lord for Bluetooth headphones." And he says, "Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in and still live in the state, and they spell it Oregon. I may be able to find and send you a T-shirt that I used to see growing up that simply said Oregon, which is OrYgun. That might help or not, because I know you love driving us nuts with the way you say it. My wife is Canadian. I put the A in there. And we have traveled all around the western part of Canada. It's such a trip to hear about places that I would not otherwise know if I didn't marry her. One time when I was about 7 or 8, back in the mid-1970s, my father took me and my big brother to see the famous Sasquatch movie in the theater. I was terrified of Sasquatch for my entire childhood. I was convinced that at some point I would look out my bedroom window and he would be there looking at me. And by the way, Callan, that wouldn't be Sasquatch. That would be Dogman. And he may be looking at you while you listen to this podcast. Sorry, Callan. And then Callan goes on to say that he lived in the city of Eugene. Now, close to 50 years later, I get to enjoy hearing about the realities of this creature, fascinated and thrilled by the different accounts you share. I never imagined that the subject would be such an interesting journey through history and geography, both of which are super interesting subjects to explore in this context. Cool. And Callan also writes that P.S. last summer we went to the coast, the Oregon coast, to camp in our RV. Right after we arrived and I got things buttoned down for the family, I walked out to the beach to see the ocean. It was dark out, and as soon as I got through the opening of trees to hit the clearing, looking west across the beach toward the ocean, I saw 4 lime green lights in the sky zip from west to the east over my head, traveling at a magnificent speed. They were in a diamond formation, and I just stood there stunned.
Hello.
UAP? I know it was not in my imagination. There is some stuff out there that we just can't explain, but we know it's there.
Wow. Now that is a righteous email, brother.
Yeah, and Callan, I have spent a lot of time up and down the Oregon coast. One, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in the United States of just stunning beauty. And two, when you go walking out there on that beach with the cold, ice cold ocean out there and the really broad sand beaches in Oregon with the largest chunks of driftwood you ever saw in your life all along the beach, you're not going to see a lot of air traffic at all. Coming across there. So, man, that had to be a spectacular sighting, Callan.
Yeah. What did he say? 4 green lights in a triangular shape?
Yeah, a diamond.
A diamond. Not much I know, Kev, that has that shape or that light formation.
Lime green lights.
Come on. So. When was the last time you saw lime green lights on anything?
No.
Let alone an airplane or some craft.
No, maybe a Christmas tree.
Yeah, so. and once again, Callan proves my point that he was looking and now he's sharing because this is what he saw. No big deal. He didn't try to elaborate or over-elaborate about what he saw. He simply stated what he saw, and he believed it to be real, as do I.
Agree.
Wow.
All right. And
now, what movie do you think he was talking about?
I don't know,
Boggy
Bill.
Creek or something?
Sasquatch movie. I don't know.
Yeah. When did the Boggy Creek movie come out?
Legend of Boggy Creek? I don't know. Probably in that time frame. This is 70s.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I guess so. But interesting, and always good to hear from you folks. Contact us at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Hit the contact button and start typing. Tell us what you've seen, what you've experienced, what you like. We're interested in hearing from you. Sorry, Kev, go ahead.
No problem. And our last email we're going to cover this week comes in from Bobby from the great state of North Carolina. And Bobby writes, "Hi, guys. I live out in the western part of North Carolina near the city of Asheville, close to the Biltmore estate. And he writes, KJ, not sure if you've ever been there. And I have been there, Bobby, just so you know, and it's beautiful, it's spectacular. The old Biltmore estate, which originally was in the middle of nowhere, absolutely spectacular. And I'm going back in a couple of weeks as well. But Bobby writes, wanted to run a theory by you guys. I know that historically there have been a fair amount of hoaxers out there, dressing up like Bigfoot or Sasquatch, donning, large wooden feet and running around in the mud. But these days, with so many of us carrying more gun than we think we're ever going to need, I would think there'd be far less, if any, hoaxers out there. What do you think?
Well, I think you're spot on, because if somebody just thinks they're going to be the guy to bag and tag a Bigfoot and make a cool million, I think there's a lot of cats out there that would pull a trigger on you and maybe regret it when they find out.
There's a lot of cats here in North Carolina, right, Bobby, that wouldn't think twice about shooting first and asking questions later.
Yeah, mistaken identification. They might not even think you're a Bigfoot. They may just mow you down to see if you're worth a buck.
But, Bobby, I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, I often think that, too, because one of the things that's really frustrating about covering, Bigfoot as part of cryptids and other oddities is, some of these things are hoaxes. And it's kind of like, I don't think, like we covered Nessie tonight, I don't think there's a lot of Nessie hoaxers out there. Like, it's just harder to do than to put on an ape suit and run around in it at night. But if you do put on an ape suit and run around in it at night, you got to be nuts, because somebody's going to shoot you. Yeah.
And it's just, look, Kev, obviously, it'd be very difficult to run around, in particular at night, in an ape suit. I mean, in the dark, in the woods, over branches. And,
no, I know, but I'm sure people have done it.
Yeah. Well, they're crazier than a loon if they have.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you've
right.
seen some of the video, maybe not at night, but you've seen some of the fake videos. We've seen some of the great videos, too, but we've definitely seen some where you're like, that ain't real. All right. Well, that's it this week, folks, for listener mail. And I want to also take a minute to thank all of you for the great 5-star reviews. Please leave us a 5-star review, even if you've left us one a while back. And if you want to leave us a 5-star written review, that's even better. Bill and I both love to read these reviews out there on your favorite podcast player. So thank you so much for supporting us.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, also, like I said, go out there and buy one of my books, please. And don't forget my new book, UFO Sightings and Encounters, Volume 1 by W.J. Sheehan. Excellent accounts in there for those of you who are interested in the UFO phenomena, as am I. And remember, if you should find yourself wandering along the Oregon coast, remember one thing: always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight.